Hello, I'm Loren Molloy, and thank you for joining me tonight while I read to you Hell House by Richard Matheson. Hell House by Richard Matheson was originally published in 1971. There is a movie version, which is sort of different, called Legend of Hell House. But let's get started with the book. December 18, 1970, 3:17 p.m. It had been raining hard since 5 o'clock that morning. Brontean weather, Dr. Barrett thought. He repressed a smile. He felt rather like a character in some latter-day Gothic romance. The driving rain, the cold, the 2-hour ride from Manhattan in one of German's long black leather upholstered limousines. The interminable wait in this corridor while disconcerting men and women hurried in and out of the German's bedroom, glancing at him occasionally. He drew his watch from his vest pocket and raised the lid. He'd been here more than an hour now. What did German want of him? Something to do with parapsychology, most likely. The old man's chain of newspapers and magazines were forever printing articles on the subject. Return from the grave, the girl who wouldn't die. Always sensational, rarely factual. Wincing at the effort, Dr. Barrett lifted his right leg over his left. He was a tall, slightly overweight man in his middle 50s. His thinning blonde hair unchanged in color, though his trimmed beard showed traces of white. He sat erect on the straight-backed chair, staring at the door to the German's bedroom. Edith must be getting restless downstairs. He was sorry she'd come. Still, he had no way of knowing it would take this long. The door to the German's bedroom opened, and his male secretary, Hanley, came out. "Doctor," he said. Barrett reached for his cane and, standing, limped across the hallway, stopping in front of the shorter man. He waited while the secretary leaned in through the doorway and announced, "Dr. Barrett, sir." Then he stepped past Hanley, entering the room. The secretary closed the door behind him. The darkly paneled bedroom was immense. Sanctum of the monarch, Barrett thought as he moved across the rug. Stopping by the massive bed, he looked at the old man sitting in it. Rolf Rudolph Deutsch was 87, bald, skeletal, his dark eyes peering out from bony cavities. Barrett smiled. "Good afternoon." Intriguing that this wasted creature ruled an empire, he was thinking. "You're crippled," Dutch's voice rasping. "No one told me that." "I beg your pardon." Barrett had stiffened. "Never mind." Dutch's cut him off. "It's not vital, I suppose. My people have recommended you. They say you're one of the 5 best in your field." He drew in laboring breath. "Your fee will be $100,000. Barrett started. "Your assignment is to establish the facts." "Regarding what?" asked Barrett. Justice seemed hesitant about replying, as though he felt it was beneath him. Finally, "Survival." "You want me to tell if it's factual or not?" Barrett's heart sank. That amount of money would make all the difference in the world to him. Still, how could he in conscience accept on such grounds? "It isn't lies I want," Dutch told him. "I'll buy the answer either way, as long as it's definitive." Barrett felt a roll of despair. "How can I convince you either way?" He was compelled to. By giving me the facts, Duchess answered, irritably. Where am I to find them? I'm a physicist. In 20 years I've studied parapsychology. I've yet to... If they exist, Dutch interrupted, you'll find them in the only place on earth I know of where survival has yet to be refuted. The Belasco House in Maine. Hell House? Something glittered in the old man's eyes. Hell House, he said. Barrett felt a tingling of excitement. I thought Belasco's heirs had it sealed off after what happened. That was 30 years ago, Dutch cut him off. They need money now. I've bought the place. Can you be there by Monday? Barrett hesitated. Then, seeing Dutch begin to frown, nodded once. Yes. He couldn't let the chance go by. There'll be 2 others with you, Dutch said. May I ask who? Florence Tanner and Benjamin Franklin Fisher. Barrett tried not to show the disappointment he felt. An over-emotive spiritualist medium and the lone survivor of the 1940 debacle? He wondered if he'd dare object. He had his own group of sensitives and didn't see how Florence Tanner or Fisher could be of any help to him. Fisher had shown incredible abilities as a boy, but after his breakdown, had obviously lost his gift, been caught in fraud a number of times, and finally disappearing from the field entirely. He listened half attentive as Dutch told him that Florence Tanner would fly north with him while Fisher would meet them in Maine. The old man noted his expression. Don't worry, he'll be in charge, he said. Tanner's only going because my people tell me she's a first-class medium. But a mental medium, said Barrett. And I want that line of approach employed as well as yours, Dutch went on, as though Barrett hadn't spoken. Fisher's presence is obvious. Barrett nodded. There was no way out of it, he saw. He'd have to bring up one of his own people after the project was underway. As to costs, he started. The old man waved him off. Take that up with Hadley. You have unlimited funds. In time? That you don't have, Dutch replied. I want an answer in a week. Barrett looked appalled. Take it or leave it, the old man snapped, sudden, naked rage in his expression. Barrett knew he had to accede or lose the opportunity, and there was a chance if he could get his machine constructed in time. He nodded once. A week, he said. 3:50 p.m. Anything else? Asked Hadley. Barrett reviewed the items in his mind again. A list of all the phenomena observed in the Belasco House. Restoration of all electrical system. Installation of telephone service. The swimming pool and steam room made available to him. Barrett had ignored the small man's frown at the 4th item. A daily swim and steam bath were mandatory for him. One more item, he said. He tried to sound casual, but felt that his excitement showed. I need a machine. I have the blueprints for it at my apartment. How soon do you need it? Hanley asked. As soon as possible. Is it large? 12 years, Barrett thought. Quite large, he said. That's it? All I can think of at the moment. I haven't mentioned living facilities, of course. Enough rooms have been renovated for your use. A couple from Caribou Falls will prepare and deliver your meals. Hanley seemed about to smile. They refused to sleep in the house. Barrett stood. It's just as well. They'd only be in the way. Hanley walked him toward the library door. Before they reached it, it was opened sharply by a stout man who glared at Barrett. Although he was 40 years younger and 100 pounds heavier, William Reinhardt Youch bore an unmistakable resemblance to his father. He shut the door. "I'm warning you right now," he said. "I'm going to block this thing." Barrett just stared at him. "The truth," Dooch said. "This is a waste of time, isn't it? Put it in writing, and I'll make you out a check for $1,000 right now." Barrett tightened. "I'm afraid. There's no such thing as the supernatural, is there?" Dutch's neck was reddening. In the movie version, just so you know, the guy is played by the same guy who was in Peyton Place. Yep. Anyway. "Correct," said Barrett. Dutch began to smile in triumph. "The word is supernormal. Nature cannot transcend—" "What the hell is the difference?" interrupted Dutch. "It's superstition, all of it." "I'm sorry, but it isn't." Barrett started past him. "Now, if you'll excuse me." Dutch caught his arm. "Now look. You better drop this thing. I'll see you never get that money." Barrett pulled his arm free. "Do what you will," he said. "I'll proceed until I hear otherwise from your father." He closed the door and started down the corridor. In light of present knowledge, his mind addressed Dutch. Anyone who chooses to refer to psychic phenomenon as superstition simply isn't aware of what's going on in the world. The documentation is immense. Barrett stopped and leaned against the wall. His leg was starting to ache again. For the first time, he allowed himself to recognize what a strain on his condition it might be to spend a week in the Belasco House. What if it really was as bad as the two accounts claimed it was? 4:37 p.m. The Rolls-Royce sped along the highway towards Manhattan. "That's an awful lot of money." Edith still sounded incredulous. "Not to him," said Barrett, "especially when you consider what he's paying for is assurance of immortality." "But he must know that you don't believe—" "I'm sure he does," Barrett interrupted. He didn't want to consider the possibility that Dutch hadn't been told. He's not the sort of man who goes into anything without being totally informed. But $100,000. Barrett smiled. "I can scarcely believe it myself," he said. "If I were like my mother, I'd undoubtedly consider this a miracle from God. The two things I've failed to accomplish both supplied at once. An opportunity to prove my theory, and provisions for our late years. Really, I could ask for no more." Edith returned his smile. "I'm happy for you, Lionel," she said. "Thank you, my dear." He patted her hand. "Monday afternoon, though." Edith looked concerned. "It doesn't give us much time." Barrett said, "I'm wondering if I shouldn't go alone on this one." She just stared at him. "Well, not alone, of course," he said. "There are two others." "What about your meals?" "They'll be provided. All I have to do is work." "I've always helped you, though," she said. "I know, it's just that—" "What?" He hesitated. "I'd rather you weren't along this time, that's all." "Why, Lionel?" She looked uneasy when he didn't answer. "Is it me?" "No, of course not." Barrett's smile was quick, distracted. "It's the house." "Isn't it just another so-called haunted house?" she asked, using his phrase. "I'm afraid it isn't," he admitted. "It's the Mount Everest of haunted houses, you might say. There were two attempts to investigate it, one in 1931, the other in 1940. Both were disasters. 8 people involved in those attempts were killed, committed suicide, or went insane. Only one survived, and I have no idea how sound he is. Benjamin Fisher, one of the two who will be with me. It's not that I fear the ultimate effect of the house, he continued, trying to ameliorate his words. I have confidence in what I know. It's simply that the details of the investigation may be a little nasty. And yet you want me to let you go there alone? My dear, what if something happens to you? Nothing will. What if it does? With me in New York and you in Maine? Edith, nothing's going to happen. Then there's no reason I can't go. She tried to smile. I'm not afraid, Lionel. I know you're not. I won't get in the way. Barrett sighed. I know I don't understand much of what you're doing, but there's always something I can do to help. Pack and unload your equipment, for instance. Help you set up your experiments. Type the rest of your manuscript you said you wanted to have ready by the first of the year. And I want to be with you when you prove your theory. Barrett nodded. Let me think about it. I won't be in your way, she promised. And I know there are any number of things I can do to help. He nodded again, trying to think. It was obvious she didn't want to stay behind. He could appreciate that. Except for his 3 weeks in London in 1962, they had never been separated since their marriage. Would it really hurt that much to take her? Certainly she'd experienced enough psychic phenomena by now to be accustomed to it. Still, that house was such an unknown factor. It hadn't been called Hell House without reason. There was a power there strong enough to physically and or mentally demolish 8 people, 3 of whom have been scientists like himself. Even believing that he knew exactly what that power was, dare he expose Edith to it? That is what I will call Chapter 1 of Hell House by Richard Matheson. I hope you're enjoying it so far. I know that with the German's man's name, I was a little here and there with it, but they spelled his name weird, and there's no, like, good way for me to know how to pronounce it. D-E-U-T-S-C-H. So, I looked it up. It's supposed to mean German. So, like, Deutschmark is kind of how it's supposed to be, I guess. But, other than that, I hope you enjoyed Chapter 1, as I put it, because, like I said, there's just dates. But they put a big blank page, so, like, it shows, like, that would be Chapter 2 coming up. So, I hope you enjoyed Chapter 1 by Richard Matheson, read by me, Loren Molloy. If you like, please make sure you share, comment, like, all that good stuff. Please make sure you subscribe to my channel and check out all the rest of my videos. I have a lot of good ones up there that I know you're going to like. And I will be continuing to read more from this book for you. So, you're going to want to keep an eye out on my channel. Till next time, guys and gals, and all of you, stay safe.